Hello everyone, my name is Caroline and my friend Shinta will be presented you about the scientific approach, discovery learning, inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, and cooperative learning. And I will presented you and explain you about scientific approach. So, scientific approach is a systematic process used to investigate phenomena, acquire new knowledge, or integrate previous knowledge, and this approach is based on empirical and measurable evidence and is subject to certain principles of reasoning. And here's the principles. So, number one is observation. Scientists rely on objective observation of the natural world, using their sense or instruments to gather data about phenomena or events. And number two is questions. Formulate questions about the observation and phenomena. Number three is hypothesis. Propose a provisional explanation or prediction that can be tested through experimentation and observation. And number four is experimentation. Designing and conducting an experiment to test a hypothesis. It involves manipulating on one or more variables while controlling others to determine cause and effect relationship. Number five is data collection. Collecting and recording data from experiments in a systematic and unbiased manner. Number six is analyzing. Analyzing data to determine whether it supports or rejected a hypothesis. This often involves statistical analysis. And the last is conclusion. Drawing conclusion based on the analysis if the hypothesis is supported. It can be accepted if it's not supported. It can be revised or rejected. And the challenge of the scientific approach. So here's three challenges of scientific approach. Number one is complexity and cost. Scientific research often requires sophisticated equipment, specialized laboratories, and trained human resources, which can be very expensive. And number two is ethical limitation. Research involving human or animal subjects must adhere to strict ethical standards to protect their welfare. And the last is complex data management. The data generated from scientific research can be very large and complex, requiring specialized tools and techniques for analysis to storage.
Okay, the next is discovery learning. Discovery learning is a learning approach that emphasizes the active involvement of learners in the process of discovering their own knowledge through exploration, experimentation, and problem solving. Okay, the next is principle about discovery learning. Number one is active engagement. Learners are actively involved in the learning process rather than passively receiving information. Number two, exploration and inquiry. Learners are encouraged to explore, investigate, and inquire. This involves experimenting, manipulating objects, and engaging in problem-solving activities that lead to discovery. Number three, problem solving. Discovery learning emphasizes the importance of solving real-world problems. Learners are given complex, open-ended problems that require critical thinking and creativity to solve. Number four, collaboration. Discovery learning often involves collaboration among learners. Group work and discussion allow learners to share ideas, challenge each other's thinkings, and build knowledge collectively. Okay, the next is challenge of the discovery learning. Number one is time and research. Requires more time and research compared to traditional learning methods. Number two, difficulty in classroom management. Teachers need to have good classroom management skills to manage more free and dynamic activities. Number three, complex assessment. Assessing learning's outcome of the discovery process can be more complex, as it involves aspects of the process and not just the end result.
And the next is inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning is a learning approach that encourages learners to ask questions, investigate, and seek answers through a process of exploration and discovery. And the principles of inquiry-based learning is number one, curiosity and questioning. Learners are encouraged to develop their curiosity and ask questions that motivate further investigation. These questions form the basis of the learning process. Number two is investigation and exploration. Investigation centered learning where learners gather information and data through various sources and methods. Number three is critical thinking. This process emphasizes critical and analytical thinking, where learners evaluate information, consider multiple perspectives, and make evidence-based decisions. And number four is evidence-based conclusion. Conclusions drawn are based on evidence and data obtained during the investigation. Learners are taught to support their arguments with strong and relevant evidence. And here's the three challenges of inquiry-based learning. Number one is time and resources. This approach requires more time for planning, implementation, and assessment compared to traditional learning methods. And number two is teacher skills. Teachers need to have strong skills in managing a more dynamic classroom and supporting learners in the inquiry process without giving too much direction. And the last is variation in learning ability. Learners have different level of readiness and skills to engage in inquiry-based learning.
Okay, the next is project-based learning. Project-based learning, or PBL, is a learning approach in which learners acquire knowledge and skill by working over a period of time to investigate and respond to real, complex questions, problem, or challenge. Okay, the next is principle about project-based learning. Number one is driving questions or challenge. Learning begins with a question or challenge that motivates and focuses learners' attention. These questions should be open-ended, challenging, and relevant to real life. Number two, in deep inquiry. Learners engage in a process of deep inquiry involving research, problem solving, experimentation, and exploration. Number three, autodidacticity. Projects should be relevant to the real world and relate to real interests or problems faced by learners. This increases their motivation and engagement in learning. Number four is student voice and choice. Learners have a voice and choice in the learning process, including in the determining the project, the method of inquiry, and they present their work. Number five, reflection. Learners regularly reflect on what they learn, how they learn, and how the project affect their understanding. Reflection helps deepen learning and improve metacognitive skills. Okay, the next is challenge of the project-based learning. Number one is planning and timing. PBL requires very detailed and structured planning from the teacher, managing time to ensure all aspects of the project are covered can be challenging, especially if the project takes place over a long period. Number two, resources. PBL often requires additional research such as access to technology, materials, and information which may not always be available in our school. Number three, teacher role. Teachers need to adapt the role of facilitator rather than information giver. This requires new skills in classroom management, monitoring, and giving feedback. Okay, the next is cooperative language learning. Cooperative language learning is a language learning approach where learners work together in small groups to achieve a common learning goal. It emphasizes cooperation among learners in performing tasks that require language interaction with the aim of improving language skills through communication and collaboration. Okay, the next is principle about cooperative language learning. Number one is positive interdependence. Learners feel that their success is linked to the success of the group. They must work together to achieve a common goal, which encourages a sense of collective responsibility. Number two is individual accountability. Each learner is responsible for their own contribution to the group. Number three, face-to-face promotive interaction. Learners are encouraged to interact directly with each other, help each other, give feedback, and work closely together. Number four, interpersonal and small group skills. Cooperative language learning develops interpersonal skills such as effective communication, leadership, decision making, and conflict resolution. These are essential for successful group work. Number 5 is group processing. The group reflects together on how well they work together and how they can improve their effectiveness in the future. This reflection helps the group to continue to grow and improve their performance.
And the challenges of the cooperative language learning. Number one is classroom management. Managing a class using CLL can be challenging as it requires dynamic group organization and content monitoring by the teacher to ensure that all learners are participating and collaborating effectively. And number two is task distribution, ensuring that tasks are shared fairly and that each learner contributes equally can be difficult. And the last is variation in the learner's ability. Groups may consist of learners with varying levels of ability. Teachers need to ensure that tasks and responsibilities within the group are adjusted to accommodate these differences and avoid frustration for less able learners. So that's all from me and Shinta. Thank you for watching and thank you.